the absolute pleasure of introducing Mr. KRS Jamwal. He is, very, very well-known personality in his own right, and it's a privilege to call him a friend. He is the executive director of Tata Industries, and that's only part of the story. He monopolized the gold medals and went top of the class in both his undergraduate studies at the Indian School of Mines in Dhanbad, and then at the IIM Ahmedabad, where he finished his what's technically called the PDGM, but we all call it the MBA degree, of course. Welcome, sir. Welcome to the show. Subsequently, he joined Tata Administrative Services and has been in the Tata Group ever since in a variety of roles. I think for several years, he had the privilege of working directly with Mr. Ratan Tata as well, and incubated several tens of businesses for the group over the years. And currently in his role as the executive director of Tata Industries, he has created businesses in healthcare, in retail, in data sciences, and many, many more. The most, the one which all of us will know from a branding perspective is Tata Click. Jamwal sir, welcome. Great to see you. You're looking well, and it's a pleasure to welcome you to the Business Transformation Symposium. And over the next 15-20 minutes, we're going to really get, I hope you will give us a dose of your wisdom, which I know that you have lots of.
Thank you, Jaideep. That's a very generous introduction, and it's very kind of you. Just one correction, I've only started or incubated 6 businesses in the last 5 to 8 years. The Tata Industries as a company has incubated almost 40 businesses over 30 years. So, but the 6 businesses include Tata Click and Tata Smart Foods and Tata Health, which I'm all very proud of.
And they're all fabulous, and we'll touch upon them. So the company's incubated 40, but you've driven the last 6, and of course we know that they're all scaling very, very rapidly. So let's begin the conversation a little bit. You are in one of the most storied groups in the country, in the cockpit, dare I say. And it has, many people call it the software to salt conglomerate these days, right? But of course, the software end tends to dominate more for all the right reasons. How does the portfolio, get discussed in the boardrooms? What are the conversations when you're thinking of capital allocations? We notice a lot of management personnel moving back and forth between group companies as well. So give us a little bit of insight into that, just as a starting point.
That's a very interesting question, Jaideep. Look, from a historical perspective, the Tata Group has always been very entrepreneurial. In fact, mentally, I always talk of almost 3 or 4 phases of entrepreneurship. One which was, let's say, till the 1930s, another from JRD's time, which is the 1930s to the 70s or beyond, and the next one, which would be probably Mr. Ratan Tata's time, which would be late, let's say 70s, early 80s onwards. And what's interesting about the Tata Group is it's not just the chairman of the group who is entrepreneurial, that is often a given, but individual companies are very entrepreneurial. Everybody knows that, TCS started as a division and first doing work for Tata Power and then grew in Tata Sons. But what people should also realize is look at Titan. Started as a watchmaker. Today it's a brand house for fashion. So that entrepreneurship, and that's what to some extent makes capital allocation a little easier today, because most of the big businesses, fortunately, when you think about it, are driving their own growth.
Mm-hmm. Sure. And
what has become challenging is the bar has become higher for new businesses.
All right.
So whereas earlier, maybe 30 years ago, you could start a business in a space and say, this will be a 10 million, 50 million business in 5 or 10 years. I think the bar has become much higher. If you don't see a visibility of $1 billion business in 10 years, I doubt you're going to get the support of the house to fund it. So that's the real challenge, if you ask me.
That's the challenge of scale as well, which brings me very nicely into what keeps you busy these days, because you touched upon the Tata culture being entrepreneurial, but not many people visualize the group that way. Yeah, but of course it is, and I guess the latest success stories in the airline business and so many others also point to that. But when you are looking at new business opportunities, and you talked about the hurdles being higher, I'm guessing another dimension is, of course, how it will add to the overall strategic direction of the group. I know the current chairman had put in place 4 or 5 sort of business groups when he took charge. So tell us a little bit about how you marry the new opportunities with the current businesses of the group or the current culture of the group. How does that look? And dare I say, since it's in the public domain, I will ask about how BigBasket fits into all this. If you're free to talk about it, of course.
I won't touch on BigBasket. Instead, since the idea of the conversation is to give you insights or give the audience insights on our group, which is by and large understated. Yet, when you actually look at performance, both performance is fantastic, and it has constantly reinvented and brought new businesses to the fore. In my personal case, in Tata Industries, I must say I was very privileged, and that will give you an insight of one of the processes that seems to work. I was very privileged to be given a lot of freedom to decide on at least which areas I wanted to explore. Mm-hmm. And even to the extent of allowing me a fair amount of risk capital to incubate companies like Tata Click and Tata Health. And I think that makes a huge difference, because if somebody like me comes along and I have a framework in my mind, and yes, I was lucky I had worked in Tata Sons before I moved to Tata Industries, I then focused all my efforts on just 2 things: white spaces of the future and some skunk works. And because you're a separate company and removed from any of the other major businesses, and that's the strength of the house, it actually gave me freedom to set up things or invest in even deep tech. Like there's this company called Frison, which is a spin out of ET at Zurich. The previous speaker was talking about how Switzerland is #1 in innovation. And this is for a really breakthrough solar technology, which is on plastic and can go directly on roofs. You can peel and stick it on roofs. It's, in my view, better than Tesla's solar type. Mm-hmm. And knowing certain possible skunk works that could work, it allows you to take bets there. Because, in an operating company which has major pressures of both growth and profitability, to hold 2 opposing views in your head of the vision of the future is not easy. But if you allow skunk works to happen in a place like Tata Industries, some of them can perhaps turn out well.
Yeah, and when we were chatting earlier, you spoke about that, when it's a successful company and it's a kind of going concern, and even more if it's listed as so many Tata companies are, disrupting the core business becomes easier said than done. So the innovation tends to happen around the edges, where sometimes you actually need to disrupt right at the core. And there is a balance that you've driven. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, there are 2 aspects to it. One is it takes a lot of sort of clear and present danger to force a large operating company. And this is not just true of Tata's, it's true of every.
Absolutely.
To change the core, across the world, to change the core. Having said that, we've been fortunate. For example, not many people know that Tata Motors' whole EV journey started with the first efforts, I think, almost 10 years ago.
Right.
So people do recognize the big picture shifts that are happening. Mm-hmm. But if you want to really build something that is going to eat an existing business, then it's often better to house it separately. To even conceptualize and house it separately. And that's what, that's why we've often had a situation where the Tata Group has had 2 or 3 businesses in the same space. because you've incubated them at different points in time. And of course, then eventually the house brings them all together and synergizes them. And fortunately, in most cases, I've found it ends up with being 1 + 1 = 3.
Yeah, yeah. No, we've seen that, for example, in the tech sector, there's TCS, there's Tata Elxsi, and I think there's also the spin-out from Tata Motors. I can't remember, Tata Engineering Services or something it's called. So I get what you're saying.
Tata Technologies.
Yeah, Tata Technologies, that's right.
That's the innate entrepreneurship of every Tata company that I was talking about.
That's wonderful. So, and also, you talked about the company in Switzerland, but that's only one of many where you're constantly scanning the environment for interesting startups to engage with, possibly invest in, sometimes buy out. Give us a little bit of insight into what drives that thinking. And, as a sort of, is there a group philosophy on minority, majority, all of those kinds of equity questions?
I won't say there's a group philosophy on minority majority, but at least where Tata Industries is concerned, the clarity is always there that our job is to build businesses for the group. So like I tell many VCs, overseas VCs who I was talking to 10 years ago when I first moved to Tata Industries, I said if I make 5 million into 10 by investing in funds and I don't grow a single new business, I don't think the group will be very happy with me. Whereas if I don't necessarily make 5 into 10, but I give the house 2 or 3 really good strategic businesses positioned in the right places, which they can then grow further, for that I'll get, and which is what makes investing in startups a bit of a tough. We've done it. It's not that we've not done it. We've done it across 3 or 4 continents. And my experience has been that it's a funny sort of perverse incentive to the startup sometimes. Because if I take 20% in the startup without a route to majority, I've often seen that as the startup grows, they say you've got 20%. In every round, you can take 20%. But if the startup fails or begins to have funding problems, then they say we are a Tata company. So you're the strategic, you have to fund the losses. So that doesn't work out so well, Jaideep. So if the startup is in a very strategic area and I can negotiate a minority plus route to majority at some stage at market price, that is good. Or I wait till a startup has really grown into something that's valuable and I buy a majority straight away. Because like I said, we're not a VC fund. We want to, and our whole philosophy is very different from a VC fund.
Sure.
We are very patient capital with a very strong focus on value creation. And the idea is to build Tata businesses of the future, of course.
Absolutely. Okay, but the financial engineering aside, what do you typically look for when you think of any startup and you're evaluating them and you're saying, okay, this guy will fit really well into the group? What causes you to, what's the filters that you kind of apply? If there are founders listening in, what should they be ticking mentally in their box to get acquired by Tata?
Well, there is a company which in Tata Industries, it was almost an experiment, and the founders came to us, and it was exactly the kind of space I thought we should be doing something, and it's called Inspira Health Sciences. And while Tata Industries owns 75%, the founders together own the remaining. And what we first look for is value system. As you said, apart from the value engineering, which is, or the financial engineering, which means do we have a majority, etc., we look at the value system. Of course, the first filter is the space of interest. Are they building something that we will one day perhaps be proud to either call a Tata business, or can it be part of an existing Tata, area, field, sector, so to speak? But once we've established that that's an area we want to be in, these founders have the right idea, then value system is primary. Because if it's not going to be run the way we would run a Tata company, in terms of compliance, in terms of people policies, all of that, if that's not going to happen, then we are making a mistake.
Okay. That's an interesting take. And I a non-obvious answer, but when I think about it, coming from a senior Tata executive, perhaps what I should have expected, sir. There is a question from one of the delegates, and I don't know if you're the right person to answer the question, but it's an innocuous one, so I'll ask. And the question is really that what is the secret of the successful story of Tata from the dimensions of digital transformation of the group itself? So the various operating companies, household names in their own right. How have they embraced digital technology, sir? And what, in your view, is keeping them fresh and keeping them successful?
I'll break it up into two parts. I feel very strongly that the secret of the successful story of Tata at a very fundamental level is a delegation of ownership. Most people talk about delegation of responsibility or delegation of authority. The Tata Group is one group that I've seen delegates ownership. And I've tried to live up to that. So, in the businesses we've incubated, I try and make sure the CEOs feel like owners. They don't get equity, but they should feel like owners. To me, that's very key because it's something I experienced throughout my working life in Tata. A great delegation of ownership from whoever I worked with. In terms of digital transformation, I think we are very fortunate to have Chandra and select colleagues and sons who understand digital intuitively. The new generation's word is grok. Where you get something intuitively. So they get digital intuitively, which is a huge plus.
Wonderful. So right from the top, there's a consciousness around the importance of digital, and of course, he's the person who pivoted TCS to the success story that it is today. One would expect that. So we are coming to the end of the conversation, and I'd love to close by asking you this. When we kind of look at the press today, the newspapers today, there are various letters of the alphabet which I use to describe the recovery path, right? So there's K, there's L, there's V, there's U, and I'm sure there are many more which I don't know of. When you folks are looking at the 2021, we're almost on fiscal 21-22 as we speak today. What is the view that you have in terms of the macros of the country, and how are the Tatas planning to really react to that? I won't say leverage it because I don't know what the answer is, but what is the mechanism to respond to that?
Jaideep, at least where attendance is concerned and the visibility I have of thinking in the house, it's that FY22, the next year, should be a very good spring back. Of course, that's predicated on everything from vaccination and people behaving sensibly, including all of us. But it should be a very good spring back. And therefore, since we were already on an aggressive growth journey, and if you notice, many of our companies have performed exceedingly well, including during this last year. Since we were already on an aggressive growth journey, I think that's probably going to increase. Where Tata Industries and our new businesses are concerned, there's one failing of people who are entrepreneurial, which is we are eternal optimists. If you're not an optimist, you will never start a business. So not only am I an optimist, but all the CEOs of the new businesses are also optimists. So we intend to make the most of the bounce back or the recovery that we see happening. And I see no reason why the government's forecast of 9-10% growth as a spring back in real terms and maybe as much as 14-15% nominal should not be what we are targeting.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, sir, that's a great place to end the conversation. Thank you for taking out time and sharing, giving us actually a very different and fabulous insight into the philosophies and the guiding principles of the group. Your approach to engaging with startups, to creating new businesses, and even in your narratives, you may not even be aware of this, but the ethos of Tata Group just it reflects in your conversation. It's been an absolute joy talking to you. Thank you for taking out time and joining us at the Tech Circle Business Transformation Symposium. And this has been, without doubt, my most enjoyable corner of his conversation. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff.